I'd just like to, a little bit of my personal experience in coming here from Adelaide and reacting to the house prices. And we have purchased, but you just shut your eyes and sign the papers. As far as that was our coping strategy. It probably wasn't a very good one, but that worked. It certainly is a very tight housing market, and certainly we noticed that coming from South Australia. As well as being Chief Executive of Anglicare, I'm a member of the Common Ground Canberra Committee, which is putting forward some housing initiatives. Just a brief introductory comment. Anglicare runs an annual housing affordability survey each year. We do it nationally. Last time we ran the survey in Canberra, and we were focusing on the rental side of affordability. There were two units that were affordable for somebody on a lower income in Canberra, 30% of income. But if you look at the statistic, as has been previously mentioned, the average mortgage repayment in Canberra is only 18% of the household income, compared to the national average of 35% of household incomes. And given that's average, so that's the mean, but Canberra, because we are, perhaps because we are, our average incomes are so much higher than the rest of Australia, what's the problem? Well, we do know there is a problem, but when we look at that statistic, it probably shows us that we're talking about problems at the people on the lower to middle income brackets rather than everybody. It's a small housing market, and so a rise in housing prices has a very big impact on the low income houses' ability to enter the mortgage market. That puts further pressure on the rental market and on public housing. It's all connected. The traditional approach, which we've heard about already tonight, is to increase the land supply. Unlike other jurisdictions, the ACT leasehold arrangements means that you don't need to purchase, the government doesn't have to go out and purchase the land as in other jurisdictions, and so conceivably it should be easier here. But as we've heard, the Hawke report certainly criticised the length of time it takes to bring land, to get land zoning and planning ready. And they cite a period of time of something like 8 years. The government's Affordable Housing Action Plan attempts to deal with this by requiring something like 4 years worth of land supply in the pipeline, as they call it, for development. And although there is sufficient land in this development pipeline, much of the land is in the preparation phase. It's not ready for building because it still needs servicing, the infrastructure. And of course the cost of that infrastructure is a significant impost on government. Now George will tell us, I hope, that there's been a massive increase in the release of land, something like 12,000 sites over the last 3 years, which is something like a 400% increase in the availability of land, and that's certainly true. And I think the government's to be commended for that. And there are a large number of other initiatives, such as 20% of all new residential estates comprising affordable housing, the land rent scheme, which has already been mentioned, stamp duty concessions, and shared equity arrangements. Now, all of these are good and worthy measures, and that means that the ACT now has a much higher rate of housing starts compared to other jurisdictions, and consequently lower house prices. And I hope George will explain that because he's better at it than I am. But essentially, house prices in the ACT are lower than they otherwise would be if it wasn't for those interventions. I'll now stop stealing your thunder, George. The fact remains, however, that for many families, housing is no longer affordable. And while Canberra does have above average income, there are still many people for whom purchasing a house is no longer within their reach, as we've heard this evening. Federal government's got affordable home ownership programs on the go, but this is still a major social and economic issue. It's social for the families concerned, it's economic for all of us, because if people can't afford to live in Canberra, then we won't have people filling the jobs that are required for our economy. So what's the answer? Simply, I believe we have to look at other forms of tenure, and in particular, affordable rental properties. My organisation is currently looking at the use of church land in particular, and as well as community land for affordable rather than supported accommodation. And as George knows, there's a tricky issue about a change of use charge if we actually do that. But we are looking towards putting this land, which is perhaps underutilised at the moment, to social and economic benefit of the whole community. What we want to do is target what you might call the top of the social housing market and the bottom of the affordable housing market, so that we have affordable rental stock which is available for long-term and secure rental for families for whom getting a mortgage is not currently and might never be a reality. This requires us to look at the housing market as a whole. What we tend to do is look at these different segments. We talk about public housing, we talk about social housing, we talk about affordable housing. I believe we've got to look at all of these parts of the market as a whole and target our efforts towards getting people out of the social situation which requires them to be in social housing and moving them into jobs and employment and able to access affordable housing. And if it's actually the same building, that's better. One of the issues I believe that confronts us is that if we target affordable purchased housing, that's a once-off benefit to a family. If we target affordable rental housing, it's an ongoing benefit as the rental stock increases. And as I said earlier, it's all connected. If we can increase affordable rental stock, that'll have an effect on the other market segments. One of the requirements, I believe, for providers, and I believe the not-for-profit sector will do a good job here, as stock increases, that is, affordable rental stock is increased, there needs to be a requirement on the providers that they will leverage their balance sheets to provide more stock. So over time, we will build up the stock available for affordable rental, and that will in fact start to drive private rental down and start to drive house prices down as well. What we've done is to call on the government to share the risk with the not-for-profit housing providers, and there's a number of means which we've been developing by which we're not asking for a subsidy, but we are asking for government to share the risk in terms of encouraging further providers into the affordable rental housing system. Thank you.